Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Imprint Explained. And today we're looking at something which has tragically happened in the eastern coast, that is Odisha, West Bengal, and other parts of India. And especially, it's also hit Bangladesh. So that is Cyclone Amphan. So in this video, we're going to talk about what are cyclones, how are they formed, what are the NDMA guidelines for cyclone disaster management, risk mitigation strategies, and so on. Right. So that's going to be our major emphasis. So let's start. Now, Cyclone Amphan has battered West Bengal and Odisha, and five people have been killed, and thousands of houses have been damaged. Trees, electric poles have been uprooted. So, I was looking at pictures from Calcutta, right? I studied there for a while, so I remember that place. So there, there's totally this, the trees have been uprooted, and this has happened literally in every part of the city. It's not just in one part, and it's not, not in the other. Every part of the city, right? So. What basically happened was, if you look at this right picture, so on 19th May, we are having wind speed in the Bay of Bengal of 200 km per hour, and this is something which we call as a super cyclone. In Calcutta, on 20th of May, 11:30 p.m. This is that right night. So there's a wind speed of 120 km per hour, and there is a heavy rainfall forecast of 500 mm over the next 5 days in parts over Meghalaya and Assam. So what we're going to get, we might even get a flood. What is the problem with that? Now, there are thousands of kacha houses, and this is the case, right? Especially in people who live in coastal parts of West Bengal. Embankments have been breached in low-level, areas because of massive. What happens in a cyclone? There's a lot of storm surge which happens, so you have to be careful with that. And then obviously, they talked about the fact that North 24 Parganas district, which is a little lower level. What has happened is that has been totally been flooded. Now, look at the images, right? So, everywhere trees like this have been broken. And this is another image from yesterday. So, as I said, the from 19th of May, it was at 200 kilometer per hour, then 185, then 187, then to 120. And even in Assam, it's like 56 kilometer per hour. Uh, what happens is that this was going to create a huge problem. Why? Because of various reasons. So now, first reason is obviously the cyclone. People, what happens? Authorities, which they have done, is that they have moved people quickly from the cyclone's path, but they have put them on the path of the coronavirus. So there's this very wonderful book that I used to read when I was in college. It was Love in the Time of Cholera. This is by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And today, I think we have another one. We have a cyclone in the times of Corona, right? I think that would be another uh, of titles for this video, I would say. Now, intensity, right, is extremely high. Even in Assam, it's a little less than 63 kilometer. But, anything above 60 is not that nice. It is not easy. Think about 100 km per hour wind speed. What has happened is that any tree which was in the way has been uprooted. Okay. Now, the cyclone obviously has brought heavy rain, this to Odisha and neighboring West Bengal. Its intensity is supposed to decrease. What happens in a tropical cyclone, we'll talk about that. As soon as it hits land, it becomes less and less intense. But what will happen is more rainfall will occur in Assam, Mizoram, etc. And we might even have a flood in the northeast. Now, Calcutta and Haldia are also the major ports, right? And they're directly in the part of the cyclone. So there will be a lot of damage there as well. It is expected that this has cost something like $15 billion. Even in Bangladesh, right, which is again on lockdown, it will receive around 500 to 100 right, of rain. It can lead to flood situations. So big problems. The next, obviously, right now and the next 24 hours are very crucial, right? Shelters are filling. COVID-19 is under danger. Rohingya refugees are at risk, right? We have evacuated, but there is a huge problem. There is some kind of buffer. The mangrove forest of Sundarbans is acting as a buffer, but it's a huge cost as well. Bridges have been swept away. Electricity are cut. I was talking to one of my students in Odisha. She said that's the whole day the light was cut from the back, right? So that is what happens. So 1 week we would know more and more about it. So that is what has happened. Now coming back, what is a tropical cyclone and where in India that we really expect damage to be? So tropical cyclone is also known as cyclone is globally used to cover tropical weather systems where wind speeds equal or exceed the gale force. That is a minimum of 34 knots or 62 kilometers. What are they? They are intense low pressure areas of the Earth's atmosphere coupled right system and are extreme weather events of the tropics. Cyclones are known by many names. Now, in various objective type papers, you'll get that typhoons, right? Northwest Pacific, that is in South China Sea. They know as in North Atlantic, they know as the hurricane, that is in America, right? In other places, they're known as Willy Willies in northwestern Australia, TCs in North and South Indian Ocean. So if you look at it, this is a map of the coast cyclone frequency and wind hazard map. So very high damage zone you can see, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry. So all the coastline and even West Bengal and Sikkim. This is the very high damage area. And even Gujarat comes under this. That is the other areas, obviously, there's less and less chance. Now, the question normally can be asked, why is it only in the Bay of Bengal cyclones are more stronger? The reason, obviously, because of the typhoons in the Northwest Pacific. There are remnants. So a lot of times typhoons of the West Pacific Ocean, South China Sea, passed over and reached the Bay of Bengal, and obviously they intensify again with the warming of the Bay of Bengal and lead to this problem. That is a tropical cyclone, and they tend to hit India every year. India has a coastline of 7,516 kilometer, right? There's 1,900 kilometer in Andaman Nicobar, 132 kilometer in Lakshadweep. So although the North Indian Ocean basin generates only 7% of the world cyclone, their impact is comparatively high and devastating, right? And so every year, right? If somebody has been reading the newspaper or been observing in life, so you'll find that every year in October, November, you'll have a cyclone. Every year in May and June, we'll have a cyclone. The May cyclone is not that strong normally, right? The primary peak of the cyclone is in November, secondary peak is in May. Now, tropical cyclone generally generate in the eastern side of the North Indian Ocean basin and move in a northwesterly direction. And there are more cyclones which form in the Bay of Bengal than the Arabian Sea, and the ratio is 4:1. And I talked about the reason. The reason is the remnants of the typhoons of the South China Sea. Now, tropical cyclones are characterized by destructive winds, storm surges, and very heavy rainfall. Each one has its different impact on human and livestock activities. Storm surges lead to loss of lives and associated with disasters. So, how many people have died? So, look at how many people died in the 70s. So in 70s, 3 lakh people died in Bangladesh, right? In Paradweep, in the cyclone in Odisha, 10,000 people died. Now, there was a super cyclone which happened some 20 years ago. There was 9,000 plus people who died. So you have to realize that I think we have actually reduced the number of people dying every year. What is the whole idea, right? So there are 13 coastal states in India, and obviously there are 84 coastal districts, and these are the ones which are targeted, and these are the ones which are impacted by cyclones very regularly. The DCs are very trained there; they know what to do, right, or how to evacuate, where to put the people, right, what to do, right, cut off power transmission and so on. So there's a standard operating procedures there. So 4 states: Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Odisha, West Bengal. So if you're DC in any of these districts, and UT obviously Puducherry, and obviously in Gujarat, you are trained in the standard operating procedures while in your training that okay, what to do if the cyclone hits. So just to have an idea, so super cyclone, which is right now what we are facing, wind speed is 222 kilometer or more. In knots is more than 120. Severe cyclone is between 119 to 221. Then there is a severe cyclonic storm in 89 to 118 kilometer. Then a cyclonic storm between 62 to 88, and low pressure area is less than 31, and then between 31 and 49 there's a depression. There's a deep depression between 50 to 61. So anything above 62 kilometer per hour is a cyclone. Okay, this is a simple definition. The wind speed, if it goes above 62 kilometer, you'll say that it's a cyclone. Now, cyclones are classified differently in the US. They have something called the SAFFIR-SIMPSON scale, right? So they say that, okay, wind speed in miles obviously is 74 to 95 minimal. So they say the damage is unanchored mobile homes, vegetation and signs, they will basically go. Storm surge is around 4 to 5 feet. right? So water basically. Then 96 to 110 moderate. So all mobile homes, roofs, small craft, flooding, etc. will happen, right? 6 to 10, 8 feet storm surge will happen. Then 111 to 130 extensive small buildings, low-lying roads will get destroyed. So this is something that has happened in, if you think about, in Calcutta and parts of Odisha. And, right, then if it's more than that, roofs are destroyed, trees are down, roads are cut off, mobile homes are destroyed, beach homes are flooded. And if it's more than 156 miles per hour, it is catastrophic. Most buildings will get destroyed, vegetation will get destroyed, homes will be flooded, and there'll be more than 18 feet. So, the images of Calcutta, that, uh, the taxis are underwater, right? If you think about Calcutta, it's like an old city. So there was a lot of old construction. So then leakages will be going on, right? Most people who, even if the I would say the place that they're staying in, the house is still standing, right? There will be a lot of damage which would be there. So I think a lot of repair work would be needed. Now, what are the conditions for development of a cyclone, right? So, what exactly happens? So, there's a low pressure area, right, in the cyclone. So, what happens is if it's a low pressure area, what will happen? There'll be upliftment of air, right, going like this. Now, obviously, as soon as that's happened, what will happen? More air will come from the side, and it will also get heated up, and it will go up and up like this, right? Okay. Now, so once this happens, this becomes a cycle, and more warm air keeps on rising. And across time, obviously, rain bands are created, and so on, right? And obviously, on the top, right, over pause, right, warm subsiding air will go down. So this is what happens. Okay, this is a diagram which I think all of you might have seen in NCERT. Now, cyclone are atmospheric and oceanic phenomena, right? And the weight of the individual condition is, however, obviously not known. Right? But there are favorable conditions that we know. So first favorable condition is a warm sea surface. Temperature should be in excess of 26 to 27 degrees, and associated warming extending up to a depth of 60 meter with abundant water vapor in the overlying air by evaporation. So this is the first condition. Then high relative humidity in the atmosphere up to a height of 5,000 meters. Atmospheric instability that encourages the formation of massive vertical cumulus clouds due to condensation of rising moisture. Then there has to be low vertical wind shear between the lower and higher levels of the atmosphere that do not allow for heat generated and released by the clouds to get transported from the area. So vertical wind shear should be low. Then there should be a presence of cyclonic vorticity. There should be a rate of rotation of air that initiates and favors rotation of air cyclonically. And so basically, it doesn't really occur on the equator. Location over the ocean, finally, at least 4-5 degrees away from the equator. Okay, why? Because then we know Coriolis force. Okay. Now, how do I describe it? So within the cyclone field, strong winds blow from the low pressure zone in an anti-clockwise direction in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. This is important, right? Questions on this can come in prelims, and we'll do a couple of objective questions at the end of this lecture. So, though the wind at the center, known as the eye of the cyclone, is very little and generally free from cloud or rain. So this is the eye. So there's no cloud or rain there. Wind speed rapidly peak, right? So something like 150 kilometer per hour from 20 to 30 kilometer from the center. They gradually decrease and become normal around 300 to 500 kilometer away. Diameter can be between 100 to 1000 kilometer, but the effect dominates over thousands of square kilometer as well over the ocean as well as the coast. Powerhouse is located 100 kilometer radius of the eye, and very strong winds are there. Sometimes more than 250 kilometer per hour can be generated in this. Now, this is a tropical cyclone. This only occurs in right. This doesn't exist in over the land. It only occurs in the sea. So when it moves from the sea to the land, it will reduce. On the other hand, there's a different cyclone which is called a temperate cyclone or an extra tropical cyclone. Now, in that cyclone, what happens? Cold air, there's two fronts. So there's a cold air front and there's a warm air front. So in the cold air is and a warm air front is created. So basically, what will happen? Warm air will rise and cold air will basically become lower to that. Now, across time, because of the direction of motion, the warm air will try to rotate and the cold air will try to go back. So it basically becomes a cyclone there as well. Okay, this happens in temperate zones, right? And across the polar front, a lot of temperate cyclones are created, and these are very common over continental Europe, parts of Canada, America, so on. Now, just to revise, so this is a chart, right? So we're looking at tropical cyclones in this video, right? Those tropical cyclones obviously are formed along the zone of confluence of northeast and southeast trade winds. This is known as the intertropical convergence zone. These are not extensive and have diameters smaller than the temperate cyclones. Major regions are Mexico, southwestern North Pacific, North Indian Ocean, South Pacific Ocean, so on. Weather conditions, obviously, no clear warm and cold fronts for a cyclone, right? Well-defined pattern of winds energized by convection currents with them. Shallow depressions and velocity of wind is weak. High velocity torrential range combined are to give destructive storms. Anticyclones, obviously, are tropical cyclones are not accompanied by anticyclones, so this you should know. Now, obviously, tropical cyclones, as we talked about, we already know they strike in May and in autumn, that is October, November. Eye of the cyclone remains calm and rainless. Right. On the other hand, temperate cyclone, as we talked about, 635 to 65-degree north and south. They blew from west to east, more pronounced in winters. Atlantic Ocean and Northwest Europe, right? Drizzling rain and they basically are cloudy skies for a number of days. Anticyclones, basically cold waves happen because of anticyclone, and sunny and calm winds are there, right, for these. Okay, and then obviously you have to understand that they're anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. This is important for cyclones. You need to remember in objective type this will come. Okay, obviously we have not talked about air masters and fronts. I think for that we will cover in a different video, but we still mentioned it here just for summary. Now, how are cyclone names? And this was a question which came in 2013 mains. So, naming of cyclones. So, tropical cyclones are named to enable easy identification and to eliminate confusion when there are multiple systems in an individual basin at a given time, and to assist people to identify the system from which danger is from most imminent. Most cases, tropical cyclone retain their names throughout their lives. However, under special circumstances, they may be renamed when they're active. These names are taken from a list. These vary from region to region and are selected a year ago. Now, the list is decided upon, right, depending on region, either by committees of the World Meteorological Organization or by the National Weather Office, that is IMD in India, and which is involved in the forecasting of cyclones. Each year, names of highly destructive cyclones are retired and replaced by new ones. Now, for example, I think a lot of you might have heard about all these. So just go for the last one that you remember. I think Cyclone Bulbul, a lot of people might remember. Funny, everybody might remember. Gaja, then Titli, a lot of people might remember. Right, Bantha, I think, right, is something that everybody will remember. Hood, Nanok, right? Across all these names you might have heard, right? So these were given by different countries. So India gave these. So Vayu was given by India, right? So Funny was given by Bangladesh, and the last one, Amphan, was given by Thailand. Now, a new naming list has been created by the contributing nations again. Okay. Now, what are the salient initiatives recommended for the implementation of the national guidelines for the management of cyclone? So, how do I mitigate? How do I manage when a cyclone occurs? So, what is required? So, first is they said that state-of-the-art cyclone, early warning systems is required, which observes, predicts warnings, customize local scale advice for decision makers in the state national level to managing the impact. This is the first thing which is required. Then we require a probing aircraft. Now, this can be a combination of a manned or a high altitude unmanned aerial vehicle. Now, this can fill the critical observational data gaps in the case of cyclone over the Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea to a great extent. So, why is that? Because if there is an actual flight by aircraft into and around the tropical cyclone during the various stages of its development, movements can provide invaluable data for studying and understanding the structure and movement. So we can basically understand the track and its intensity prediction. So it will reduce this error that we normally have of intensity and tracking. Now, what else can be done? So we need to commission the National Disaster Communication Infrastructure at the NDMA, the state disaster management authorities of coastal UTs and the district disaster management authorities of the 84 coastal district vulnerable to cyclones with the adoption of state-of-art operational infrastructure during the follow-up. So kya should be done? There should be high-end computing, right? Storage space, communication data, etc. 3D virtual reality visual studio, centralized comprehensive data bank for cyclone management, right? In nodes in various coastal states with a fail-safe communication. So it should not happen that cyclone hits and we have no communication, right? We are not able to analyze. Then comprehensive state-of-the-art OC for effective disaster management response actions at the state and local level. Then there should be dissemination outreach by direct to home transmission in remote and rural areas, which cannot be otherwise covered. Introduce a weather channel and broadcast cyclone warming from highly powered radio stations, including satellite systems like HAMS, World Space, Community Network, WHS, and anything which can be used should be used to communicate. Then what should be done for cyclone risk mitigation? Now, first is structural safety of lifeline infrastructure in coastal areas. Then a robust system of locating multi-purpose cyclone centers and scattle mounts. Then we should have a cyclone-resistant design standard should be there. So any rural and urban housing in these 84 districts, so cyclone-resistant construction should be done. All weather links should be there, right? Then maintaining full design carrying capacity of main drains and canals. So we should be ready for a storm surge. So we should have additional flood flow canals in frequently inundated areas. Then construction of saline embankments to prevent ingress of saline water associated with cyclonic storm surge, so that the saline water goes back. Then encourage private partnership, right? Public-private partnership with corporate trust. Now, how do I reduce the cyclone risk reduction? So I need to map and delineate coastal wetlands, patches of mangroves, and shelter beds. Identify a potential zone for expanding bioshield. So we need to do this. So Sundarbans needs to be encouraged, and we need to encourage mangroves in India. Regulating infrastructure development activities in coastal zones. Then monitoring of water quality as well as simulation of open water with institutional remedial measures. So what do I do? There's some kind of cyclone comes and the water becomes saline. Developing integrated coastal management zones framework for addressing the sustainability and optimal utilization of coastal zones for cyclonic impact. So the zone management framework has to be integrated with the disaster management. Then evolving ecosystem restoration plan for degraded ecological zones, developing data, water management, and freshwater recharge. Then coastal bioshield spreads restoration plan should be there. Now, we also need to set up a ecosystem monitoring network to study the impact of changing climate and whether that is leading more cyclones or less cyclones. Then we need to integrate the hazard mitigation framework, taking into account the cyclone and the associated storm surge. So wind hazard, rainfall runoff, river water, GIS modeling, we can do for inundation. So if the water is traveling, right, what to do there. Then also evaluating the vulnerability and the changing profile of vulnerability from time to time. Then obviously integrate the ongoing efforts of Survey of India, Department of Space under the National Spatial Data Infrastructure. So there has to be integration of digital spatial data from the 84 coastal districts that are vulnerable for cyclones. So this is important. And for evolving holistic cyclone risk strategies on priority. Then high resolution coastal digital elevation models should be developed for micro delineation of cyclone hazard, risk, and vulnerability. Then augmentation of additional service done by census commissioner should be carried out for generating household and disaster specific attributable data. So how many people there? We should be very, very regularly surveys should be done there in these areas. Then establish a comprehensive cyclone disaster management information system to cover all phases of disaster management to provide online services to the departments of the disaster management in the states. Then specify the roles of responsibility of the state disaster management and institutionalize the cyclone risk mitigation with development. And this is very, very important. That any kind of planning that has cyclone risk mitigation in these 84 needs to be done. That these 84 districts. So launching community-based disaster management activities similar to a DRM project of MHA in all villages of 84 districts vulnerable to the cyclone that have not been yet been covered. Then NCDMA should be established as an exclusive institutional setup in the coastal states. And they should basically focus on the cyclone risk. NDMA should conceptualize, and NCDMA basically, right, should basically involve stakeholders from the community and focus on mitigation, response, rehabilitation, and recovery and preparedness. Now, this will bridge the gap of integration, disaster-related technical support of the ministry with the local authority. And this NCDMA will be the platform for this. And this needs to be implemented. Now, what are the questions? So we said why tropical cyclones are confined to South China Sea, Bay of Bengal, and Gulf of Mexico, right? So obviously the conditions, you'll talk about those. Then the recent cyclone on the east coast of India is called Phalin. What are the tropical cyclones named it? So you can write these two questions, I think, with the things we have talked about in the video, and you can send it to us, email it to us, and we can give you our comments about it. Now, what kind of objective type questions can come? So consider the following statement: extratropical cyclones. So they are formed across the polar front. That is true. They originate over both land and sea. True. They move from west to east. Right. So they move obviously from east. So all of them are correct. Okay, and we have given the detailed solution here. So systems are developing in the mid latitude and high latitude beyond the tropics are called mid latitude or extratropical cyclones. The passage of the front causes abrupt change in weather conditions of the areas in the mid latitude and high latitude. Extratropical cyclones are formed along the polar front. And this is different in this, right? So they have a clear frontal system, which is not there. So this can also been written here. They cover a large right area and originate over land and sea, whereas tropical cyclones originate over the seas and on reaching the land they dissipate. And this is what happening in the case of Cyclone Amphan. Then extra tropical cyclone have a larger area as compared to the tropical cyclone, and the wind velocity in a tropical cyclone is faster and it's very destructive. Extra tropical cyclone move from west to east, so it's going from, let's say, from, if I think about Seattle in the US, and it is moving towards, let's say, Illinois. On the other hand, extratropical cyclone, right, tropical cyclone moves from east to west, so they'll basically move, let's say, from Visakhapatnam to Vizag side. Now, another question: which of the following favorites, right? So, sea surface temperature. So, which of the following among the following are the conditions favorable for the formation and intensification of tropical cyclone? So, first is sea surface temperature higher than 27 degrees, which is true. Absence of presence, this is incorrect. We have presence of, right? And pre-existing high pressure area. Okay, so pre-existing low pressure area, not high pressure area. So, answer is one only. So, you can actually note from here. Then, which of the following are correct in consider the following statements? Karnataka is less prone to tropical cyclone as compared to Odisha. Amravati is more prone to disaster than Visakhapatnam. So, Amravati is less prone because it is obviously not coastal exactly. Visakhapatnam obviously has faced cyclones regularly. Karnataka obviously is less prone than Odisha. Why? Because obviously we've talked about the fact that West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra, Tamil Nadu and the western coast, it's basically Gujarat which is most affected, right? Some coastal regions of an interior Maharashtra also affected, but not Karnataka definitely. So the answer is one only, right? Statement 2 is incorrect. Okay, why is a cyclone so devastating effect of a cyclone goes on increasing at its move away from the sea? It is because moisture supply has been cut off and the coastal cities are more prone to tropical cyclone, right? So Visakhapatnam being a coastal city, so Amravati is less prone than Visakhapatnam. Okay. Right. With this, I think we come to the end of the video. If you have any questions, you can write an email to us. Do visit our website. If you have any questions, you can WhatsApp us or even call us at this number. Thank you so much for listening. And with this, let's pray to the people who have been devastated by Cyclone Amphan, and let's all contribute for their well-being. Right. I'm sure everybody should contribute to the West Bengal Relief Fund. Thank you so much.